The day everything changed. The envelope sat on my kitchen table, crisp and official. Inside was a check that would change everything. My hands trembled as I picked it up, remembering that graduation day 7 years ago when my stepmom, Patricia, had looked me in the eye and told me there was no money left. No college fund, no future, just empty promises and lies. My name is Emma Richardson, and I was 17 when my world fell apart. It happened on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. The June sun was bright that morning, filtering through the windows of our family home in Portland, Oregon. I could hear the neighbors mowing their lawns, kids laughing in the distance. Everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. I was wearing my cap and gown, getting ready for my high school graduation ceremony. My dad had passed away 2 years earlier from cancer, and I missed him terribly on days like this. But I had something to hold on to, something he had promised me before he died. "Emma, sweetheart," he had said from his hospital bed, his voice weak but determined. "I've set up a college fund for you. It's all taken care of. You're going to have the education I never had. Promise me you'll use it well." I had promised. I had studied hard, earned a scholarship to cover part of my tuition at Oregon State University. And the fund would cover the rest. My future felt secure. That morning, I walked downstairs to find Patricia, my stepmom, sitting at the dining room table with my older stepbrother, Derek. They were drinking coffee and whispering about something. When I entered the room, they stopped talking. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. "Big day today." Patricia looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. It wasn't warm like it used to be when Dad was alive. It was cold, distant. "Emma, we need to talk," she said. Those 4 words made my stomach drop. I sat down slowly, still wearing my graduation gown. "What's wrong?" I asked. Derek wouldn't look at me. He stared down at his coffee cup, his jaw tight. Patricia folded her hands on the table. "Your father's estate has been settled," she began, "and I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding about the college fund." "What kind of misunderstanding?" My voice sounded small. "There is no money, Emma. Your father had debts, medical bills. The house needed repairs. Everything went to covering those expenses. The college fund is gone." The room started spinning. "That's not possible." Dad told me how your father was sick. Patricia interrupted, her voice sharp. He wasn't thinking clearly. He made promises he couldn't keep. I looked at Derek, hoping he would say something, defend me, tell the truth. But he just sat there in silence. "Your money is ours now," Patricia said quietly. And those words hit me like a physical blow. She didn't even try to hide it. The cruelty in her voice was clear. I graduated that afternoon in a daze. I watched my classmates celebrate with their families, talking about their college plans, their bright futures, and I felt completely alone. The next few years were the hardest of my life. I couldn't afford to go to Oregon State. I couldn't afford to go anywhere. Instead, I got a job at a local diner, working double shifts to save money. I moved into a tiny studio apartment on the edge of town. I took online classes at the community college whenever I could afford them, one course at a time. Patricia and Derek moved forward with their lives. Derek used what I later learned was my college fund money to start a luxury car detailing business. Patricia renovated the house, took expensive vacations, bought designer clothes. Meanwhile, I worked. I saved, I studied. Some days were so hard I wanted to give up. I would come home after a 12-hour shift, my feet aching, my uniform smelling like grease, and I would cry. But then I would remember my dad's words, his promise, and I would get back up. I filed complaints with lawyers, but without proof there was nothing I could do. Patricia had been smart about covering her tracks. Everything had been legal technically. As Dad's widow, she had control over the estate. She had just chosen to steal from me in a way the law couldn't touch. 5 years after graduation, something unexpected happened. I was working as a waitress at an upscale restaurant by then, having worked my way up from the diner. One evening, a regular customer named Mr. Harrison asked me about my story. He was a kind older gentleman who always left generous tips. "You're too smart to be just waiting tables," he said gently. "What happened?" I told him everything. About my dad, the college fund, Patricia, and Derek's betrayal. Mr. Harrison listened carefully. Then he handed me his business card. He was a financial advisor and estate attorney. "Let me look into this," he said. "No charge. Something about your story doesn't add up." 2 months later, he called me into his office. "Emma, I found something," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "Your father set up the college fund as an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary. It couldn't legally be touched by anyone else, including his widow. What your stepmother did was fraud." My heart pounded. "Are you sure?" "I'm certain. And there's more. The trust has been growing with interest all these years. It's worth significantly more now than when your father passed away. Mr. Harrison helped me file a lawsuit. The legal process took 2 years, but the evidence was overwhelming. Patricia had forged documents, moved money illegally, and committed multiple counts of fraud. On a cold November morning, 7 years after my graduation, I drove to the house where I grew up, the house Patricia had renovated with my money. I knocked on the door. Patricia answered, looking older but still wearing expensive jewelry. "Emma?" She looked surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to give you this," I said, handing her the legal documents. "It's a court order. You and Derek are being charged with fraud and theft. You're required to return all the money you stole from my college fund. Plus interest, plus damage." Her face went white. "You can't prove anything." "I already did," I said calmly. "My lawyer found the original trust documents. My dad protected me, even after he was gone. You just didn't know where to look." Derek appeared behind her, and the color drained from his face too. "Your business, your renovations, your vacations, all of it was built on stolen money," I continued. "The court has frozen your assets. You'll have to sell everything to pay me back." Patricia's hands shook. "Emma, please. We're family." "No," I said quietly. "You stopped being my family the day you looked me in the eye and told me my money was yours. You tried to ruin my future." 3 months later, I received the settlement check. It was sitting on my kitchen table the morning everything came full circle. The amount was more than the original fund, because of interest and legal damages. Enough to finish my degree, start a business, build the life my father had wanted for me. But the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that I had survived. I had worked through the pain, the betrayal, the seemingly impossible obstacles. I had become stronger than I ever thought possible. Patricia and Derek lost almost everything. The house was sold. Derek's business closed. They moved into a small apartment across town. I didn't feel joy at their downfall, but I didn't feel sorry for them either. They had made their choices. Now they were living with the consequences. I enrolled at Oregon State University that fall, 7 years later than planned. I was older than my classmates, but I didn't care. I walked across campus with my head held high. I changed my major to social work. I wanted to help people who had been taken advantage of, who had lost everything, who needed someone to believe in them. On my first day of classes, I walked past a building named after major donors. I thought about my dad and smiled. He had kept his promise after all. The college fund was real. His love was real, and I had kept my promise to him. I had used it well. Some nights I still work shifts at the restaurant to help pay for expenses, but now when I come home tired, I don't cry. I study, I plan, I dream, because I learned something important through all of this. People can take your money, your opportunities, even your family, but they can't take your strength, your determination, or your ability to rise again. Patricia and Derek tried to ruin my future. Instead, they taught me that I was strong enough to build one on my own, and that was worth more than any college fund could ever be.